My wife said she was going on a road trip to the beach with her best friend, and she specifically told me not to contact her. Before she left, she put on a brand new dress, sprayed a flirty perfume, and adjusted the passenger seat all the way back. In the middle of the night, the more I thought about it, the more uneasy I felt. I dialed her best friend's husband's number. Is Harper home? He answered sleepily. Yeah, she just finished showering. I clenched my phone, got into my car, and drove straight to his house. Open the door. I'm outside. Her best friend's husband opened the door, and there was Harper, standing in the living room in her pajamas, completely panicking. The next moment, I opened the car app on my phone and remotely locked my wife's car. Chloe said she was going on a 3-day road trip to the beach with her best friend, Harper. She specifically told me not to contact her. The reception where we're going is terrible, she said. And I just really want to completely unplug and relax. I nodded. Okay. The day before she left, she dragged me around the mall all day. She bought a new white sundress. She also bought a new bottle of perfume. It wasn't her usual light, floral scent. This one was rich, musky, and incredibly sexy. She said, Harper loves this scent. On the morning of her departure, she got up very early. She spent 2 hours doing her makeup. Her eyeliner was sharp, and she wore a bold, classic red lipstick. What's its hair? It's just a trip to the beach. Do you really need to go all out like this? She laughed. You don't understand girls, Adam. We need to take lots of cute pictures for Instagram. She loaded her suitcase into the trunk. Then, she got into the driver's seat, but immediately got back out. She opened the passenger door and started adjusting the seat. She pushed the passenger seat all the way back, creating the maximum amount of legroom. I frowned. Why are you making the passenger seat so spacious? Chloe didn't even look back. Harper gained some weight recently. I'm afraid she won't be comfortable otherwise. I didn't say anything else. I helped her close the trunk. She leaned out of the car window and blew me a kiss. Bien, Adam. Be a good boy at home. The car sped away, kicking up dust. I went back inside our empty house. The heavy, suffocating scent of her perfume still lingered in the air. I walked out onto the balcony and lit a cigarette. Harper gained weight? We had just had dinner together last week. She was even thinner than Chloe. My heart began to sink, inch by inch. In the middle of the night, I lay in bed, tossing and turning. Chloe's Snapchat profile background was still our wedding photo. In the photo, her smile was so sweet. But my mind was entirely consumed by that passenger seat pushed all the way back. I grabbed my phone. I dialed Harper's husband, Mike. Hey, it's so late. What's up? I took a deep breath, keeping my voice as steady as possible. Mike, is Harper home? There was a second of silence on the other end. Then came Mike's confused voice. Yeah, she's home. She just finished her shower. She's blow-drying her hair right now. I felt the blood in my veins completely freeze. Sorry, dialed the wrong number. I hung up. The room was deathly quiet. Outside the window, the city lights were cold and piercing. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. But as I laughed, tears started rolling down my face. What a brilliant road trip. What a wonderful best friend. I sat up abruptly. Rage surged through every fiber of my being. I couldn't just let this go. I needed proof. I needed answers. I needed to shatter this meticulously crafted lie into pieces. I rushed downstairs. I started my car. I slammed on the gas, and the car shot out like an arrow. The cold night wind rushed through the open window, stinging my face. But my heart was much colder than the wind. 20 minutes later, I parked my car outside Mike's apartment building. It was a very familiar neighborhood. Chloe and I had been here countless times. I pulled out my phone again and called Mike. Open the door. I'm outside your apartment. On the other end of the line, Mike was baffled. What? Are you kidding me? I'm not kidding. Open the door. I heard footsteps through the phone, and then Harper's faint, startled gasp. A few seconds later, the door opened. Mike stood there in his sweatpants, looking at me with utter confusion. Adam. I pushed past him and walked inside. The living room lights were bright. Behind him stood Harper in her pink silk pajamas. Her hair was wet, and she was still holding her hair dryer. When she saw me, her face completely lost all color. Harper's eyes looked like those of a cornered animal. The hair dryer slipped from her hand and clattered onto the floor. Adam, what? Why are you here? Her voice was trembling, barely audible. Mike finally snapped out of his daze. He walked over and patted my shoulder. Adam, what the hell is going on? Did you and Chloe get into a fight? He knew nothing. Looking at him, I suddenly felt a wave of pity and a bit of envy. My gaze shifted back to Harper. Aren't you supposed to be on a road trip at the beach with Chloe? Why are you at home? Harper's face turned as white as a sheet of paper. Oh, about that. We canceled it at the last minute. Yeah, we canceled it. Mike looked even more confused now. Canceled? What are you guys talking about? He looked at me, then at his panicked wife. I laughed. It was a cold, bitter laugh. I didn't look at her again. Under their bewildered stares, I pulled out my phone. I opened my car's tracking app. It clearly showed the real-time location of Chloe's white BMW. A blinking red. It was parked at a resort hotel over 80 miles away from the city. My fingers swiped gently across the screen. An option popped up. Remote lock and disable engine. A small text notification flashed. Vehicle locked. Engine immobilized. Right at that moment, my phone started ringing like crazy. It was Chloe. I answered it and put it on speaker. Her panicked, crying voice erupted from the speaker.
Adam.
Where are you? My car. I don't know what happened, but it suddenly locked itself and won't start. I'm trapped at a highway rest stop. It's so dark and I'm so scared. Please come rescue me. I held the phone, staring at the pale-faced Harper in front of me, and said slowly, I am at your best friend's house. And her husband is right here with me. The other end of the line went instantly dead silent. I could easily picture Chloe's face at this exact moment. A few seconds later, her hysterical voice exploded from the speaker. Why are you at Harper's house? What the hell are you doing at her place in the middle of the night? Are you out of your mind?
He let out a cold sneer.
Am I out of my mind? Chloe, I should be the one asking that question. Aren't you supposed to be with Harper? Why are you alone at a rest stop? In the living room, Harper stumbled back. She almost collapsed to the floor. Mike caught her. He finally sensed that something was terribly wrong. His brows furrowed deeply. Adam, what the hell is actually going on? I turned my phone screen toward him. She's right here. I pointed at the location on the screen. A place called the Aegean Resort, 80 miles away from here. Mike's expression changed instantly. He stared at his wife in disbelief. Harper avoided his eyes, not daring to look at him or me. She was still trying to make a desperate excuse. That's a misunderstanding. Chloe's, her GPS must be broken. GPS is broken? My smile grew colder. Then is my car's GPS broken too? On the other end of the line, Chloe heard everything. What do you want? I'm just at a rest stop. My car broke down. I'm alone and terrified. Unlock my car right now.
Sure.
Tell me the name of the rest stop you're at. I'll drive over right now. And I'll bring your best friend and her husband with me. We can all pick you up together. As soon as those words left my mouth, Chloe completely broke down on the phone. Don't you dare. If you bring them here, we are done. We were done a long time ago, I replied flatly. The very moment you pushed that passenger seat all the way back. With that, I hung up. I put my phone in my pocket and looked at the terrified Mike and Harper. Mike's lips trembled. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know where to start. This honest, hard-working man was watching his entire world crumble before his eyes. And Harper was clutching his arm tightly. Adam, let me explain. It's not what you think. It's really not. I had no interest in her explanations. I had already achieved my goal. I looked at Mike. Now, I have two options. First, I drive to that resort alone. Second, we go together. I suggest the second option, I added, because my car is equipped with a 360-degree dashcam, high-definition night vision, interior and exterior, with audio recording. I'm worried the footage might be too wild for me to enjoy alone. Mike's body shuddered. He wasn't stupid. He understood. He took a deep breath, as if making a final decision. Slowly, he pried Harper's fingers off his arm. His voice was terrifyingly raspy. Get dressed, he told Harper. We are going together. Harper's eyes were filled with pure despair. She started crying and begging. Adam, please don't do this, I beg you. It's all a misunderstanding. Believe me. If you go, our marriage is over. Go change your clothes.
Now.
Mike's voice suddenly boomed, filled with an authority I had never heard from him before. In all the years I had known him, this was the first time I had ever seen him angry. Harper was stunned into silence. Her cries choked back in her throat. Looking at her husband's icy glare, she knew there was no turning back. Like a lost soul, she stumbled into the bedroom. I watched all of this quietly. There was no joy in my heart, only a barren, freezing emptiness. The destruction of a marriage was playing out right in front of me, and I was the one who had handed over the sledgehammer. A few minutes later, Harper walked out in regular clothes. Her face was stained with tears, and her hair was a mess. Mike grabbed his car keys and looked at me. Let's go. The highway stretched ahead like a black ribbon cutting through the desolate landscape. It was past 1 in the morning. The headlights of my SUV carved a sharp, trembling path through the dense fog, illuminating green highway signs that ticked down the miles toward the Aegean resort. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere was suffocating. Mike was behind the wheel, his knuckles bleached white against the leather. His breathing was heavy, uneven, like an engine running on bad fuel. In the passenger seat sat Harper. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers twisting into the fabric of her coat until the seams strained. She kept stealing glances into the rearview mirror, her eyes wide, glassy with terror, waiting for me to speak. I sat in the back, calm, cold, and utterly still. "Give me your phone, Harper," I said quietly. Harper flinched, as if struck by an electric shock. "What?" "Adam, I swear I'm not." "Give me the phone." "Adam, please, you're acting insane." "Harper." Mike's voice cut through the silence like a butcher's blade. He didn't look away from the road, but the tremor in his jaw was unmistakable. "Hand him the goddamn phone." Tears spilled over Harper's eyelashes. Trembling, she unlocked her purse, took out her iPhone, and passed it through the gap between the front seats. I took it. The screen was still warm. The messaging app was open to Chloe's contact. The draft in the text box read, "He knows." He locked the car. "He came to my house. He's driving us there right now. Get out of." I deleted the draft, turned on airplane mode, and slipped the phone into my inner coat pocket. A 3-day road trip, I mused aloud, staring out into the pitch-black woods, flying past our windows. "You spent last Sunday at our dining table, Harper. You drank Chloe's wine, you ate the steak I grilled, and you smiled at me while she talked about the beach cottage you two had supposedly rented." Harper sobbed into her hands. "Chloe begged me, Adam. She swore it was just a break, that she just needed space to clear her head." With the passenger seat pushed all the way back, I leaned forward slightly. "Tell me, Harper, did you gain weight? Because she told me she adjusted that seat for you." Harper choked on her breath, unable to produce a single word. Mike looked up into the rearview mirror. His eyes met mine. The friendship between Mike and me went back 7 years. We had helped each other move into our first apartments, celebrated promotions, and stood as groomsmen at each other's weddings. Seeing the sheer humiliation burning in his eyes felt like a hot wire twisted around my heart. "Who is it, Adam?" Mike asked, his voice dead and gravelly. "Do you know who she's with?" "Not yet," I replied, pulling out my own phone and tapping the security system app for my BMW. "But we're about to find out." The BMW was equipped with a factory-integrated cloud surveillance system, an upgrade I had installed 6 months ago after someone keyed our door in a downtown parking garage. It featured front, rear, and full 360-degree interior wide-angle lenses, automatically uploading encrypted, time-stamped footage whenever the motion sensors or ignition were engaged. I brought up the timeline for 8:45 a.m. that morning. A buffering circle spun on the screen for 3 agonizing seconds, and then the interior feed loaded in high definition. The screen glowed blue in the dark cabin. On the video, Chloe was seated in the driver's seat of our white BMW. The morning sun illuminated her crisp white sundress, the crimson red on her lips, and the gold chain resting against her collarbone. She was humming a pop song while checking her lipstick in the vanity mirror. She had just pulled into the underground parking garage of the Grand Continental Hotel downtown, 20 minutes after leaving our driveway. The car stopped. The passenger door opened. A man stepped into the frame. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing an expensive tailored linen blazer, dark aviator sunglasses, and a rose gold Patek Philippe on his wrist. He slid effortlessly into the front passenger seat, the seat Chloe had so thoughtfully adjusted all the way back. He took off his sunglasses, turned to Chloe, and smiled. "Good morning, sweetheart." His voice rang out crystal clear through my phone speakers. "Did you manage to sneak out without your little watchdog sniffing around?" Chloe let out a breathy, girlish laugh, a sound I hadn't heard from her in 3 years. She leaned across the center console, wrapped her manicured fingers around the back of his neck, and kissed him deeply on the mouth. "He's clueless," Chloe purred against his lips. "He bought the whole beach trip. Story with Harper. Even helped me pack the trunk." The man chuckled, reaching his hand down to stroke Chloe's bare thigh above the hem of her sundress. "Good boy. Let's make sure we leave him something to remember." In the front seat of our SUV, Mike suddenly slammed his foot on the brake. The tires screeched across the asphalt before gripping again. The vehicle swerved violently toward the shoulder before Mike wrestled the steering wheel back into alignment. "Mike," Harper screamed, grabbing the dashboard. Mike didn't care. His eyes were glued to the rearview mirror, his face entirely drained of color, his chest heaving as if he had just been submerged in Arctic water. "That's..." Mike's voice cracked into a dry whisper. "That's Brandon Vance." I stared down at the screen. The man on the feed was laughing as Chloe put the car in reverse. Brandon Vance. Mike's direct superior at Vance Global Logistics. The man who held Mike's career bonuses and potential regional directorship in the palm of his hand. And more than that, the major private investor who had just signed a letter of intent last month to acquire a 40% stake in my software company. A cold, razor-sharp clarity settled over my mind. The pieces fell together with sickening elegance. The frequent late-night business dinners Chloe claimed she had to attend to support my networking, the uncharacteristic interest she showed in my corporate contracts, the sudden invitations Mike received to high-profile industry galas. "Harper," Mike said, his voice terrifyingly calm now. "Look at me." Harper buried her face deeper into her palms, weeping uncontrollably. "Did you know?"
Mike asked.
"Did you know it was Brandon?" Harper didn't answer. Her silence was a guillotine. "Brandon promised you something, didn't he?" I said from the back seat, my voice steady as ice. "That's why you covered for them." "What did he offer you, Harper? A fast-track promotion for Mike? A cut of the venture fund? Or just the thrill of sitting at the big kids' table?" I didn't have a choice," Harper wailed, turning around, her face smeared with mascara and snot. "Brandon told me if I said anything, he would fire Mike and blacklist him across the entire state. He said Chloe was going to leave you anyway once the buyout went through. He said everyone would win." Mike let out a sound that was half sob, half roar. He struck the steering wheel with the heel of his fist, the horn blaring in short, violent bursts into the empty night. "Keep driving, Mike," I said quietly, leaning back into the leather seat. "We're almost there." At 2:15 a.m., the iron gates of the Aegean resort appeared through the mist. Nestled in the secluded coastal hills, the resort was an ultra-luxury retreat, designed for discreet getaways, private villas, heated infinity pools, and zero paparazzi. It was the kind of place where guests paid thousands of dollars a night precisely, so nobody would ask who they were sleeping with. Mike pulled up to the security barrier. The guard stepped out of his booth, looking annoyed at the late arrival. I rolled down my rear window, flashed a high-tier executive member card that Brandon's own firm had gifted me during our initial funding talks, and gave the guard the license plate of my BMW. "The white BMW M4 parked in VIP Bay 4, I said smoothly. "My associates are already inside. We're joining them for an urgent brief." The guard glanced at the card, checked the terminal, and nodded. "Yes, sir. Bay 4 is reserved under Suite 1402, the presidential villa at the top of the hill. Gate is open." "Thank you." The gate swung upward. Mike drove through the winding, palm-lined driveway. We found my BMW parked beneath the canopy of an illuminated stone portico.
The
white paint gleamed under the soft ambient lanterns, but the hazard lights were blinking slowly. The vehicle was completely bricked, its digital cluster dark, its doors magnetically locked by the remote override I had triggered from 80 miles away. Mike parked alongside it. We all stepped out into the damp, sea-salted air. I walked over to my car. Through the tinted driver's window, I could see the
interior.
On the passenger seat lay a pair of men's sunglasses, an empty bottle of Dom Perignon rolling on the floor mats, and Chloe's pearl earrings discarded carelessly in the cup holder. "Suite 1402, I said, looking up at the grand villa perched on the cliffside above us. Warm, golden light spilled from the second-floor terrace. Harper stood by our car, shivering in her thin jacket, her legs barely able to support her weight. "Adam, Mike, please, let's just go home. We can handle this through lawyers. If we go up there, everything is going to be destroyed." Mike walked up to his wife. For the first time that night, his expression was completely devoid of emotion. "Everything was already destroyed the moment you chose Brandon over me," Mike
said.
He didn't wait for her. He turned and marched up the stone staircase toward the
villa.
I followed a pace behind him, while Harper trailed in the distance like a condemned prisoner walking toward the scaffold. The front door of Suite 1402 was heavy, dark mahogany with a brass digital keypad. Inside, We could hear the faint sound of smooth jazz playing, punctuated by the sharp, anxious voice of Chloe pacing behind the door. I'm telling you, Brandon, he knows. Chloe was shouting through the wood, her voice frantic and breathless. His app locked the engine. He was at Harper's
House.
Harper isn't answering her phone. He's crazy. He might actually drive up. Here. Relax, Chloe. Brandon's deep, dismissive voice resonated from inside. Even if he drives here, what is he going to do? Cause a scene? Adam is an engineer.
He's
A soft-spoken nerd who needs my $8 million investment to keep his little startup alive. When he gets here, I'll offer him a financial settlement, buy out his shares at a slight premium, and have security escort him off the
property.
Sit down, drink your wine, and let me handle it. I stood before the door for 2 full seconds. Then I raised my fist and knocked 3 firm, measured beats. The voices inside cut off instantly. The jazz music continued to drift through the gap under the door. Concierge, I called out in a low, even tone. We have the emergency bypass key for the disabled vehicle in Bay 4. There was a rustle of movement inside, the sound of high heels clicking rapidly across the hardwood floor. See, Brandon's voice muttered near the door. It's just hotel staff. I told you were panicking over nothing. The deadbolt clicked. The heavy mahogany door swung inward. Chloe stood in the entryway. She was wearing a sheer, floor-length emerald silk robe over matching lingerie. Her hair was tousled, her lipstick smudged across her cheek. In her right hand, she held a crystal glass half filled with red wine. Behind her, leaning casually against the kitchen island in a white hotel bathrobe and slippers, was Brandon Vance. He held a glass of scotch, a condescending half-smile resting on his square jaw. The smile died the moment their eyes met mine. Chloe's glass slipped from her hand. It hit the marble foyer with a dull crack, shattering into a dozen jagged shards and splattering crimson liquid across the hem of her robe and the pristine white rug.
Adam.
Chloe's voice was a dry croak. Then she looked past my shoulder and saw Mike. And behind Mike, Harper, weeping, against the wall. Chloe stepped back instinctively, her chest heaving, her eyes darting between the 4 of us like a cornered animal realizing all the exits have been barricaded. Brandon froze. His grip tightened on his scotch glass. For a fraction of a second, raw panic flickered across his face, but he quickly swallowed it down, straightening his posture, attempting to summon the arrogant aura of a man used to buying his way out of every inconvenience. Well, Brandon said, his voice artificially smooth as he set his drink on the
Counter.
Looks like we have a full house. Get out of my way, Mike growled. Mike didn't lunge at Brandon. He didn't scream. He walked straight past Chloe, stepped over the broken glass without looking down, and walked directly up to Brandon Vance. Brandon held up both hands in a placating gesture, though his jaw was clenched. Mike,
Take a breath.
let's not do anything unprofessional here. What happens in our personal lives doesn't need to affect the company. Crack. Mike didn't use a fist. He slapped Brandon across the face with an open palm so hard the sound echoed off the high ceiling. Brandon stumbled sideways, crashing into the bar stools. The scotch glass tumbled to the floor and shattered. A bright red welt bloomed instantly across Brandon's
Cheek.
You son of a bitch, Mike said, his voice shaking with pure venom. You used my wife to cover your tracks. You sat in my office on Tuesday and asked me how my marriage was going.
Mike.
That's enough. Brandon snarled, wiping his mouth, his eyes flashing with fury. You touch me again, and I will ruin you. You won't find a job sweeping floors in this city. He doesn't need a job from you, Brandon, I said, stepping into the suite and closing the mahogany door behind me. Chloe rushed over to me, her hands reaching out desperately, trying to grab the lapels of my coat.
Adam.
Listen to me. Please, just listen to me for 5 minutes. It's not what it looks like. He forced me into this. He said if I didn't spend the weekend with him, he'd pull the funding on your startup.
I did.
This for you, Adam. For us. I looked down at her. Her hands touched my coat. I felt nothing.
No anger.
No grief. Just a profound, liberating disgust. You wore a new white sundress, I said softly, looking directly into her wide, panicked eyes. You spent 2 hours on your eyeliner. You bought musky perfume. And told me Harper loved the scent. And before you left our driveway, you took the time to push the passenger seat all the way back so your lover's long legs wouldn't cramp. Chloe choked, stepping back, as if slapped.
Adam.
Did you do all of that for my startup, too? I walked over to the 65-inch television mounted on the living room wall.
I
Plugged my phone into the media port on the console, connected to the local screen mirroring feed, and pressed play. The high-definition footage from the car played instantly across the massive screen. The audio filled the luxurious suite. Did you manage to sneak out without your little watchdog sniffing around? He's clueless. He bought the whole beach trip story with Harper. When the acquisition closes next month, Adam will walk away with $2 million in stock. You file for divorce the next day, claim 50% of his equity under community property laws, and we merge your shares into my holding company. He'll end up working as a mid-level coder in his own firm. God, Brandon, you're brilliant. Let's celebrate tonight at the Aegean. Chloe dropped to her knees right there on the rug, amidst the puddle of spilled
wine.
Harper leaned against the doorway, sliding down the frame until she was sitting on the floor, holding her head between her knees, weeping in complete despair. Brandon stood by the island, the blood completely drained from his face. His confident posture crumbled. His eyes stared at the television screen, watching his own face conspire to commit corporate fraud, insider manipulation, and marital extortion. Turn that off, Brandon whispered. No, I replied, sitting down on the edge of the leather sofa and crossing my
Legs.
I think it's just getting to the best part. How much do you want? Brandon suddenly blurted out, taking a step toward me, his voice strained and desperate. Name your price, Adam. 3 million?
5
million cash? I'll wire it to an offshore account by sunrise. We delete the footage, you sign an NDA, and we walk away. I looked at him with genuine amusement. You really think everything in this world has a price tag, Brandon? Everyone has a price. Brandon shouted, losing his composure. You're a tech nerd. You built an algorithm. You want to spend the next 5 years in court fighting me? My family owns the top litigation firm in the state. I will drag this out until you are bankrupt and sleeping in your car. You won't, I said calmly, checking my wristwatch. Because in precisely 12 minutes, your board of directors is receiving an automated dispatch. Brandon froze. What? At 1:30 a.m., while we were driving here, I uploaded a full encrypted archive of this footage, alongside 3 months of your corporate email correspondence, where you discussed leveraging the venture capital fund to manipulate my company's valuation, I said, tapping the screen of my tablet. It's scheduled to be sent to your firm's ethics committee, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and most importantly, your wife, Victoria. Brandon's knees visibly buckled. Victoria Vance was the sole heiress to the Vance logistics empire. Brandon was an executive by marriage, a man whose entire fortune, status, and corporate authority depended entirely on an ironclad prenuptial agreement tied to the Vance family trust.
Adam, no.
Don't do that, Brandon pleaded, his voice cracking into a high-pitched whine. Victoria will take everything. She'll strip my shares, my house, my board seat. I'll have nothing left. Then you'd better start packing, I said, because the timer is down to 11 minutes. Brandon frantically scrambled across the floor, grabbing his phone from the coffee table. He dialed frantically, screaming into the receiver. Victoria, honey, listen to me. There's a blackmail attempt happening right now. A cold dial tone clicked on the other end. His wife had already received the preview. Brandon collapsed back onto the sofa, staring blankly at the ceiling, his phone slipping from his fingers and hitting the floor. In the center of the room, Chloe was still on her knees, crawling toward me. Across the spilled wine, her emerald robe soaked and stained. Adam, please. I made a mistake. He manipulated me. He promised me the world. I was stupid. She grabbed the cuff of my trousers, her tears washing through the smudged mascara on her cheeks. Look at me. We've been married for 4 years. We built a life together. You can't just throw me away like this. I looked down at her. I remembered the girl who used to pack lunches for me when I was working 80-hour weeks in our tiny garage. I remembered the vows we took under the summer sun, promising to protect each other from the storms of life. That girl was long gone. The person kneeling before me was a hollow shell driven by greed, vanity, and shallow thrills. You threw us away this morning, Chloe, I said, my voice quiet and steady. When you sprayed that perfume, when you adjusted that seat, when you laughed in my car with another man. I gently reached down, pried her fingers off my pant leg, and stood up. The locks on the house have already been changed, I added. Your clothes and personal effects have been packed into boxes and placed in a self-storage unit. Downtown. The access code will be emailed to your lawyer. Adam.
No.
Please don't leave me here. Chloe shrieked, clutching at the air. Meanwhile, Mike walked over to Harper. Harper looked up at her husband, her face swollen with tears. Mike, I'm so sorry. I swear to God, I'll do anything to make it right. Mike didn't say a single word. He reached down, took Harper's left hand, and slowly slid the platinum wedding ring off her ring finger. He walked over to the marble bar, dropped the ring into the ice bucket with a soft, metallic clink and turned around. Let's go, Adam, Mike said, his back straight, his voice firm. Let's go, I replied. We walked out of Suite 1402 together, leaving the heavy mahogany door wide open. Behind us, Chloe's hysterical screams and Harper's desperate wailing echoed down the quiet, manicured hallway of the resort, swallowed up by the sound of the ocean waves crashing against the cliffs below. The storm broke by sunrise. By 8 a.m., the corporate fallout was instantaneous and brutal. Vance Global Logistics issued an emergency press release announcing the immediate termination of Brandon Vance from all executive positions, citing gross ethical violations and misuse of corporate assets. By noon, Victoria Vance's legal team filed an emergency petition for divorce, freezing all joint bank accounts, revoking Brandon's trust disbursements, and initiating eviction proceedings on his downtown penthouse. By the end of the week, Brandon Vance was effectively erased from the high society circles he had once dominated. He moved into a dingy, extended stay motel near the industrial harbor, hounded by creditors and facing an active SEC inquiry. Chloe's collapse was equally swift. Without Brandon's wealth to support her and cut off from all marital accounts, she attempted to contest our prenuptial agreement. But the cloud surveillance footage, combined with time-stamped text messages and financial records, demonstrating intent to commit fraud against my company, left her legal counsel with zero leverage. The judge granted an expedited divorce on grounds of extreme marital misconduct and fraud. Chloe walked away with nothing more than her personal car and the clothes stored in the rental unit. Harper and Mike's divorce was finalized 2 months later. Harper moved back to her parents' house in a small town 300 miles away, completely estranged from every friend and acquaintance she had ever known in the city. 6 months later, the autumn sun hung warm and golden over the bay. I sat at an outdoor table of a quiet roadside diner overlooking the marina, holding a steaming cup of black coffee. The air smelled of salt, pine, and freedom. My startup had closed its independent series of funding round the previous week, led by a reputable, transparent venture fund that valued our technology rather than personal leverage. I had sold our old suburban house and bought a modest, modern loft in the Arts District with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. A familiar dark blue sedan pulled into the parking lot. The door opened and Mike stepped out. He looked lean, rested, and sharp in a simple crewneck sweater and jeans. He had accepted a senior operations role at a rival logistics firm 4 months ago and was thriving, running his own department with full autonomy. Hey, Adam, Mike smiled, pulling out a chair and sitting down opposite me. Hey, Mike. How was the drive? Smooth. No traffic at all. Mike ordered a coffee from the waitress, then looked out over the sparkling bay. It's peaceful out here. It really is. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, the kind of silence that only exists between two men who have walked through hell together and come out the other side intact. You know, Mike said softly, turning his mug between his hands, sometimes I still think about that night, how close we were to living a lie for the rest of our lives. The truth hurts, I replied, taking a sip of my coffee. But it only hurts once. A lie poisons you every single day. Mike nodded slowly. He raised his coffee cup toward me. To fresh starts. I raised mine, tapping the rim of his cup with a clear, resonant clink. To fresh starts. The morning breeze swept across the marina, carrying away the last remnants of the past, leaving behind an open road and a clear, unclouded sky.